Good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News. The National Assembly re-amends bill and approves direct-indirect mode of primary elections. Bill is to be transmitted to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent. And the court orders the federal government to pay Kanu 1 billion naira and tender an apology over the 2017 invasion of his house. In foreign news, calls on Boris Johnson to resign over the 2020 lockdown party as he attended a Downing Street intensify. In sports, Bayern Munich may sell Lewandowski over contract renewal tussle. Now the news in detail. I am Tomisi Ujo. The Senate on Wednesday rescinded its decision that political parties must use the only direct mode of primary nominating candidates for elections. It resolved that parties are now free to use either direct or indirect primary while nominating candidates in line with the objections raised by President Muhammadu Buhari when he rejected the Electoral Act Amendment Bill in December 2021. This followed a motion titled Withholding of Assent on Electoral Act No. 6, 2010, Repeal and Reenact Bill 2021, and its recommittal to the Committee of the Whole, sponsored by the Senate leader, Senator Yahya Abdullahi, at plenary. Senator Abdullahi noted that the rationale for withholding assent bordered on his observation in Clause 84 and urged his colleagues to rescind the Chamber's decision. On giving a nod to the request, the Senate amended Clause 84 to now allow for direct, indirect, and consensus options for nominating candidates for various political parties in the country. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives on Wednesday also approved direct and indirect primary clauses as a mode of electing candidates by political parties for general elections. This was originally the provision in the extant law, the Electoral Act 2010, before the National Assembly, and the course of tinkering with the Act expunged it. Recall that President Muhammadu Buhari had withheld his assent to the bill transmitted to him, citing the impracticality of the direct primary mode at this time of the nation's history. The rejection, however, compelled the House and indeed the Senate to reconsider the bill and vote to include direct and indirect primary provisions in the electoral bill. Reconsidering the bill in the Committee of the Whole a while ago, the House unanimously passed the provision.
And the Committee of Whole on the reconsideration of the Electoral Act Amendment has been adopted by the House, but for emphasis' sake, I need to state categorically that what was adopted, what was considered and adopted by the House was only one clause, and that was Clause 84(2). And that was the clause to do with direct and indirect primaries. No other clause in the Electoral Act Amendment was considered or adopted. So, the Electoral Act Amendment that was sent ab initio initially to Mr. President remains as it is. The only change is 84(2), wherein we have now included, in addition, indirect primaries, which was what was originally brought to us by the Electoral Committee.
A High Court in Umuahia, Abia State on Wednesday ordered the federal government to pay the sum of 1 billion naira to Nnamdi Kanu for violating the rights of the Biafra agitator, and the suit filed through his counsel Aloy Ejimakom against Abubakar Malami, Attorney General of the Federation. The leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB, accused the federal government of allegedly violating his fundamental human rights. Joining the suit with the AGF was the DSS Director General. Other respondents include the federal government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, First Chief of Army Staff 3rd, Inspector General of Police as 5th, and 3 others. Among other reliefs sought in the suit, Kanu asked the court to compel the respondents to pay him 5 billion naira in damages as monetary compensation for the physical, mental, emotional, psychological, and other damages suffered as a result of the alleged infringement on his fundamental human rights. He also sought damages for the invasion of his father's house on the 10th of September 2017 by the military. In the meantime, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, was pleaded not guilty to the 15-count charge bordering on treasonable felony and terrorism preferred against him by the federal government. He pleaded not guilty before Justice Binta Yako when the case resumed at the Federal High Court in Abuja on Wednesday, before the case was adjourned till the 16th of February to hear the pending application. Kanu was brought into the courtroom around 10:15 a.m., said he was innocent of all the allegations leveled against him, even as a complaint from the doc, some of the counts on the amended charge were similar. Immediately, the embattled IPOB leader finished taking his plea. The prosecution counsel, Labaran Magaji, told the court he was ready to proceed with trial, adding he brought 2 witnesses to testify against the defendant. In a brief ruling, Justice Nyako noted that since Kanu's first application is challenging the propriety of the trial as well as the competence of the charge against him, the court ought to hear it first.
The court is duty-bound to look at that application, take argument, and then decide it one way or the other before the matter can proceed. And of course, our application is fundamental, it's intrinsic to this trial. And the judge agreed with us, telling the prosecution, there's no way you can tell me to start trial. What if we start trial and then the appellate court finally quashes whatever we do here? So she was right. That is the legal position. And because of that, she has determined that she will take first this application to quash the entire counts in the 15th count. And then if there's still any case to try at all, that is when we now get to cross the bridge after getting there. So what the 16th of February has been set down for at 1 p.m. is just for this application alone to quash the counts in the 15th count charge and discharge and acquit Nnamdi Kanu. Because in law, you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stay. It will collapse. I cannot imagine a house that has no foundation.
The Federal Executive Council (FEC) has approved various contracts worth 76.78 billion naira for the ministries of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, and Transportation, as well as for flood control in the 6 geopolitical zones. This was disclosed to the State House correspondents after the week's virtual council meeting presided over by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Addressing journalists at the end of the meeting, the Ministers of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, and Minister of the FCT, Malam Mohammed Bello, and that of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, gave breakdowns on the activities of the Council as well as details of the approved contracts. Minister of the FCT, whose ministry received about 56.2 billion naira, the highest of the allocations, said they are for the construction of Kuje 105 Highway Access Road and car park for Abuja Light Rail Station. Moving on to other stories, though 36 governors are at the moment engaging in a crucial meeting, first of which in 2022, an in-person one as opposed to the regular virtual ones where pressing national issues can be discussed. The Director General of the Forum, Ashishina Okauru, in the statement said the meeting, which will be characterized under item 2 of the agenda titled Matters Arising, the statement by the head of media and public affairs of the NGF, Abdulrazak Bello Bakindo, said the meeting is also to deliberate on the forum's intervention programs. Members will be receiving updates from the Nigeria Governors Forum SFTA's team and another on CARES, as well as a few presentations. The meeting commenced at about 8 p.m. at the NGF Secretariat in Abuja. At the end of the meeting, the NGF chairman and the governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, accompanied by the 36 governors, will address the press. A former deputy national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Olabode George, is canvassing against any questionable character who seeks to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2023, calling on the electorate to resist such politicians at the polls. George, who came out with this position during a media interaction in Lagos, also denied nursing any presidential ambition, noting that age is no longer on his side. He said every qualified citizen has the right to aspire to any leadership position in a true, genuine, and democratic process. The PDP chieftain restated his position on the direct primary into the amended electoral bill, saying it would bring sanity into our electoral process. He therefore urged President Muhammadu Buhari to rethink his opposition to the direct primary clause, saying it was unjust for a few, select few, to determine the fate of any political party's candidate.
While it is legitimate and valid for those who are interested in governance to openly declare their aspirations, it is also incumbent upon the rest of us as citizens of this nation to inquire, to scrutinize, to investigate, to examine in totality the qualities of those who seek our mandate. We must sift between jesters and pretenders. We must separate the robber barons, the brazen treasury looters, from the selfless vanguard who have come to truly serve our people.
And still on politics, a coalition of about 57 groups staged a 1 million man walk in solidarity for the national leader and presidential aspirant of the All Progressive Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The rally held in Ibadan had various members of groups to show support for the former Lagos governor. Traffic around the Liberty Stadium and its environment stood still as supporters of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu sensitized residents as to why their candidate remains the candidate to beat in the election. The rally began from the popular Liberty Stadium through Ring Road, a distance which is about 1 kilometer walk away. They described the 1 million walk organized to create awareness for Nigerians in the Southwest on the credibility of their preferred candidate. The group pledged to work towards mobilizing Nigerians to support the national leader of the APC in the coming elections.
In support of Asiwaju, and today we are doing a march for Asiwaju, telling the whole Nigerians from the Southwest, because Asiwaju is from the Southwest, we are saying it is Asiwaju we want to be in Aso Rock in 2023.
He has built up capacities that has been able to leverage on the values that Nigeria is enjoying today. And as such, we believe that he should be given, and he will be given, that chance to rule this country come 2023.
As part of measures geared towards curtailing incidents of prison attack in parts of the country, the federal government appears to have commenced proactive steps with an assurance that such bad occurrences will be discouraged. Against this background, the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, has ordered officials of the Nigeria Correctional Service shoot anyone at sight who attempts to attack prison facilities across the country. He said the directive, while addressing senior officers at the Agodi Custodial Center and the newly built maximum facility at Olojuro area of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The minister also charged Nigerians to work with operatives by giving relevant information of runaway inmates across the country.
We have 4 facilities in this state. We have the 128 years old Agodi. maximum custodial facility. It's one of the oldest in Nigeria, 1894. Less than a third, or about a third of the inmates there are convicts. The remaining 2/3 are waiting trial inmates who will spend a maximum of 1 year, 12 months, while he to be convicted for the crime he committed. Is there now spending 4 years? One, we are violating his rights. Two, we are putting unnecessary costs on the government. This center has been partly completed. It's about 4 or 5 years ago. As it is today, this center can take 800 inmates. So I've directed the authorities of the correctional service to make this place operational by the end of next month.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing renewed calls for him to resign. We'll bring you details of that story and others from the foreign scene after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching Primetime News and moving down to the foreign scene. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing fresh pressure to resign after being accused of misleading members of parliament about attending parties in Downing Street during the lockdown in 2020. In the Commons, veteran Conservative Member of Parliament and former Minister David Davis said the Prime Minister, in the name of God, go. Tory Member of Parliament Christian Wakeford said leaving the Conservatives was the hardest decision of his life after joining Labour in another dramatic moment. Another leader, Labour, Keir Starmer, accused Johnson of providing absurd defences over parties. The Prime Minister apologises for his misjudgment, but again said members of Parliament should wait for results of the inquiry.
Like many on these benches, I spent weeks and months defending the Prime Minister against often angry constituents. I reminded them of his success in delivering Brexit and on the vaccine and many other things. But I expect my leaders to shoulder the responsibility for the actions they take. Yesterday, he did the opposite of that. So I'll remind him of a quotation altogether too familiar to him, of Leo Amery to Neville Chamberlain. You have sat there too long for all the good you have done. In the name of God, go.
The head of the World Health Organization, WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, has issued a warning to world leaders that the coronavirus pandemic is nowhere near over. Dr. Ghebreyesus cautioned against the assumption that the newly dominant Omicron is significantly milder and has eliminated the threat posed by the virus. The intervention comes as some European nations saw record new case numbers. France reported nearly 500,000 new daily cases on Tuesday. Speaking during a news conference at the WHO's headquarters in Geneva, Dr. Tedros told reporters the Omicron variant had led to 18 million new infections across the world over the past week alone.
This virus will continue to evolve and threaten our health system if we don't improve the collective response. Right now, Delta and Omicron are twin threats that are driving up cases to record numbers. I'm highly concerned that Omicron, being more transmissible, circulating at the same time as Delta, is leading to a tsunami of cases.
We need to be careful about changing tactics and strategies immediately on the basis of what we're seeing in early Omicron data. I think it would be advisable at this point, if we don't see huge shifts, huge moves in reducing control measures for...
And still talking COVID, nurses in New South Wales, home to a third of Australia's newly 26 million people, or nearly, 26 million people are coming under pressure as an Omicron-fueled wave of COVID-19 sweeps across the state. Senior intensive care unit nurse Michelle Rosentreta, who is also a member of the NSW Nurses and Midwives Association, says the variant has doubled the number of patients in the ICU and quadrupled the number on the wards. Every day is a struggle to deliver the best care to an ever-increasing number of people.
Well, all unions have just met at the ACTU and discussed what our response will be to this absolute crisis that the workforce and our community is facing. First thing I wanted to say is we heard from healthcare unions, and I can only describe what they told us as dire. Both in our hospitals but also in our aged care and in disability support, the situation for the community, for clients, for patients, for the workforce is absolutely dire. And we send our complete support and solidarity to them at this time. What we absolutely need to do is absolutely everything we can to reduce the pressure on our healthcare system, because it is meaning that those healthcare systems are becoming overwhelmed, and as a result people are unnecessarily suffering and people will die if we do not reduce the number of infections that are currently out in the community.
And NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has invited Russia to more talks on the Ukraine crisis as fears mount over a possible breakout of conflict in Europe. But Moscow says it wants answers from the West over its sweeping wish list of security demands before engaging in further discussions. Speaking to reporters in Berlin, Stoltenberg said he had proposed a series of meetings in the NATO-Russia Council to address both Moscow and the West's concerns and try to find a way forward to prevent any military attack against Ukraine. It did not give an exact date for when the talks would take place, but said the discussions had been suggested for the near future. Moscow has overseen a recent military build-up of up to 100,000 troops near Ukraine's borders, prompting fears in the Kiev and among its Western allies of an impending invasion. A deadly drone attack by Yemen's Houthis on the United Arab Emirates UAE has exposed the country's vulnerability, analysts say, while also jeopardizing its reputation as a tourism and business hub and pushing it towards rapprochement with Iran. The attack on Monday targeted a key oil facility in Abu Dhabi, killing 3 people, and also caused a fire at the Abu Dhabi International Airport. It attracted international condemnation and a pledge for retaliation from the UAE. We'll take another break. When we return, we'll bring you stories from the sports world. Welcome back. Bayern Munich are planning to sell Robert Lewandowski in the summer if FA rejects a new contract. The 33-year-old only has 18 months left to run on his current deal, and he has expressed his desire to keep playing at the highest level for another 4 years. Lewandowski has yet to commit his future to Bayern, though, and they will seek to cash in on the striker if he doesn't agree to an extension between now and the end of the season. Bayern are reportedly prepared to make an exception in their club policy by offering Robert Lewandowski a new 2-year contract. The 33-year-old striker has scored 23 goals in 19 Bundesliga games this season, but will have just a year left on his deal at the end of the current campaign. In tennis, Rafael Nadal put on a clinical performance to ease past German qualifier Yannick Hanfmann 6-2, 6-3 and 6-4 and reached the 3rd round of the Australian Open on Wednesday as the Spaniard remained on course for a men's record 21st Grand Slam title. The 30-year-old Hanfmann did slightly better on a windy day at the Rod Laver Arena, but it was not enough to trouble Nadal, who hit 30 winners and broke his opponent's serve 4 times in the match while saving both breakpoints he faced. Nadal needed 5 match points before sealing victory when Hanfmann sent a forehand long. The 6th seed will next meet either Russian Karen Khachanov or Benjamin Bonzi of France for a place in the 4th round. And in the female singles, still talking tennis, world #1 Ashley Barty stormed into the third round of the Australian Open for the 6th time of her career with a convincing 6-1, 6-1 win over Lucia Bronzetti on Rod Laver Arena. The home favorite took just 52 minutes to beat the Italian qualifier and will now face number 30 seed Camila Galgi in the third round as the Australian bids to win the Melbourne Slam for the first time. She took the first set in only 26 minutes as she dominated against the world #1 42, who beat Varvara Kracheva in the three sets to reach the second round. Barty hit 11 winners and converted 6 of the 7 points she took on at the net. That's it on our primetime news tonight. A quick recap of our top stories just before we go. The National Assembly has re-amended the Electoral Amendment Bill, and approved direct, indirect, and consensus primary elections. And the court has ordered federal government to pay Nnamdi Kanu, #1 billion naira and tender an apology over the 2017 invasion of his father's house. In foreign news, there are renewed calls for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to resign over the 2020 lockdown party he attended at Downing Street. In sports news, Bayern Munich set to sell Lewandowski if he fails to renew his contract with them. Thanks for joining us on the Primetime News tonight. For more, visit our website www.mitvonline.ng, and you can also visit our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I am Tomisi Ujo. Have a good night. Good night.